Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're tuned in to your national radio station, Oman FM 90.4. In a world where we carry news in our pockets, it's very difficult to control what we consume, especially with the increased usage of social media. We're swamped with information, some of them being real, some of them fake, some are horrible, and others are great. In order to discuss the effects of this on our mental health, I'm joined with senior licensed psychologist Nutayla Al-Kharousi, who is here to tell us more about how we can consume this news and effectively take action against it on our mental health. Welcome in, Ms. Nutayla.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I just wanted to start off by saying, how does this constant exposure to negative and threatening news affect our mental health?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It does take a toll on our mental health when we're consuming negative news on a regular basis and on a constant basis. And what happens is it impacts our brain. It puts our brain in a mode called like the threat mode, or another terminology that we use in psychology is the fight, flight, freeze response, or even the stress response. And this threat mode actually worked really well for our ancestors. So let's say the cavemen back in the day, thousands of years ago, when they would be trekking the savannah or they would be in the wilderness. And if there was a lion that was about to attack them, if that threat mode gets activated, then that would help them, survive that threatening situation. They would either flee or fight. So it worked really well back then. But now the problem that we're having in modern day society, we don't directly deal with an actual physical stressor. We're not dealing directly with the threat.
It's
right?
not an immediate threat.
Yes, it's not an immediate threat. Exactly that. And the brain cannot differentiate between what is a real threat and a perceived threat, a threat that it gets from being exposed to constant distressing news and images and so on, right? So what happens is our brain is on that threat mode on a regular basis, right? And that takes a toll on our mental health, right? So you feel mentally exhausted, you feel emotionally exhausted and drained as well. You feel that you're constantly on edge because your brain feels or believes that there's immediate threat constantly.
And it's ready to fight or fly.
So the brain is doing its job, is helping us to survive, basically, and hence it's quite reactive.
And that's why that instinct kicks in times like this, though we can't really do anything about what we're seeing on our phones.
Yes.
So do you think this is a probable cause for anxiety or loss of control? Because we're very anxious about things that are out of our control and we really can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Does that tie into this?
Yeah, you can do something about it, right? You can limit how much you're exposing yourself to the news. But I want people to understand that it's normal for you to feel anxious. It's a normal response, and anxiety is not always a bad thing. But when it takes a life of its own, then yes, it's absolutely, it harms us, right? Because we're not in control of anxiety. But it is a normal response to uncertainty, and there's a lot of uncertainty that is happening right now in the world.
The things that we hear could be, real or fake, right? We don't really know if what we're hearing is absolutely true. But here's the thing. See, there's a lot of news that roams around online. Like there's a panda that's being saved somewhere. The gorillas are going extinct, or like something is happening around the world. Why is it that we're always drawn to the negative things that happen?
Yeah.
Like, why am I not focused on the first man to do 1,000 backflips in 3 hours? Like, why am I focused on things that are harmful for me?
A great question. So we gravitate towards negative news or threatening news is because we are biologically programmed that way. So our brains are wired to something called negativity bias. And remember how I talked about our ancestors, the cavemen, if they were not walking or going into their environment, scanning for negative stimuli in their environment, they would have been eaten alive, right, by that lion. So there's a protective measure to it.
A defense mechanism,
Yes,
sort of.
it's biologically programmed in us to scan for negativity in our environment to protect us. It's a survival mechanism. And the news outlets, they know this, right? They know that emotionally intense content will grab our attention. So hence we are gravitating towards those negative headlines. Our brains are always scanning, okay, what's next? What could go wrong? And so on. So it's just a survival mechanism. But unfortunately, our brain is not designed to handle that much of negative news, right? We're getting too much negative news and we're being exposed to it on a constant basis.
True.
And that's when our brains are overwhelmed and overregulated, and it doesn't have an opportunity to just reset.
So then it's very difficult to stay sane in a time like this, right? I mean, what are the ways that I can protect myself from this?
I think you need to focus on what you can control, and you can control your news consumption. So I would highly recommend that you set healthy boundaries with your news consumption. I would recommend that you maybe set specific times during the day where you will read the news. I would not recommend that you read the news first thing in the morning, because that's when our brains are quite impressionable and quite sensitive, and you don't want to prime your nervous system for stress when your day hasn't even begun. I also don't recommend that you watch the news or read the news just before you go to bed, because that can trigger your stress response and you will not be able to sleep very well. So set specific times during the day where you can watch the news, set healthy boundaries. I would also recommend that you don't doom scroll on social media, right?
See, I was just about to touch on that point.
Yeah.
See, for those people who don't know, right? So doom scrolling is the action of scrolling through or reading depressing and worrying content on social media and news sites, especially on the phone.
Yeah.
So with the rise of doom scrolling, of course, Instagram Reels, TikTok, and now it's been incorporated into everything, even YouTube now.
Yeah.
What is your advice for people who doom scroll a lot, especially as someone who partakes in that activity, especially late at night? That's where the news outlets push their reels the most, because they know that's the time where they could affect people. How do you think we could limit that realistically?
Yeah. It's a very good question, right? And it depends on you. I would say, reassess or evaluate your relationship with social media. Something that I tell my clients to do is, before they get on, say, social media platforms, maybe assess their well-being, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how they feel before they get on social media. So 1 to 10, 10 being I'm extremely content, right? And then go on social media, and then after you're done with social media consumption, then again reevaluate your well-being, like from a scale of 1 to 10. If it is going down, right, significantly, your score, then I would say it's time to look at your habits and maybe take a break from social media. It is doable. And I hear from a lot of people that when they're bored, or when they had a long day at work, maybe they would just go on social media, and that's when
scroll.
and doom scroll, or and so on. And I would say, I know that it doesn't take a lot of mental effort to just go on social media, but do you even feel better after you're on, scrolling through, endless content on social media? And most of the answers that I get from my clients is no, they actually feel worse, right?
True. And the thing is, right, as of right now, the people watching us could be doom scrolling, right? The reel right under us, or the TikTok right under us, could be of something negative. Does this fluctuation affect the brain? If I'm seeing positive, negative, weird, positive, negative, like what does that do to my brain if I'm seeing every reel be different in emotion and it gives me a different reaction? You
get a different you get a hit of dopamine, right? And that's how it hooks us in. social media content. There's something called intermittent reinforcement in psychology, where it's like a slot machine. You don't know what you're going to get, right? You might get rewarded. Maybe you're telling yourself, or your brain is telling you, oh, maybe the next post I see will be better, or maybe it will be more engaging, and so on. So it hooks us in, and like social media has a lot of emotional intensity, right, behind the content, and that's how it hooks us in. And doom scrolling is like a loop driven by uncertainty and checking, right? So what happens right now, right? We have a lot of uncertainty in the world. So we feel uncertain. So our brain wants us to get some information to make us feel like we are in control. So it gives us this illusion that we are in control. So what it does, we check a post, we try to get some information to feel more certain. So then we start feeling less anxious. So it's a short-term temporary relief from anxiety. But then what happens again, it's short-lived. We get anxious again. So then we check again, right? And then
it's the constant loop of just anxiousness and checking if we're now certain or fulfilled.
Yes. So it's just a vicious cycle. And the thing with scrolling through social media is there's no exit strategy. When you watch a TV show, you know that there's a season finale. Right. There's a cue to your brain that, okay, it's done. I'm going to leave now, right? But with social media, it's just endless.
There's endless amounts of reels.
Exactly. So it just hooks you in.
True.
Right?
And when do you realize that that's taking a negative toll on your well-being? Like, what are some of the signs that this is very negative?
Yes. In terms of doom scrolling, or just consuming news, negative news, or both, combination
I'd say a mixture of both, because I'd say I consume most of the news through doom scrolling or through scrolling Instagram or TikTok or etc. So what are some of the signs that this is becoming a negative effect on you?
Yeah. I would say, first of all, ask yourself, are you feeling overwhelmed to the extent that it is interfering with your daily life? So are you unable to switch off? Do you feel maybe a constant urge to keep checking your social media feeds, or your keep checking the news, for instance? Do you feel that it's impacting your sleep, and you're not able to carry on your responsibilities on a daily basis? Do you feel a sense of hopelessness? Do you feel like you're stuck in your thoughts? So these are the key signs that, okay, I do need to get some help, or maybe I need to reevaluate myself and get some coping skills.
True. So like you mentioned at the start that if you find yourself getting overwhelmed, that it could possibly be a sign of, that it's taking a negative toll on your well-being and mental health. But how could I stay informed without being overwhelmed? Because I feel like every time I try hop on social media and I see the news that's being out there, I'm overwhelmed with different news outlets telling me different things.
Yeah.
Different news, different articles, etc. And it's all just unclear. So how could I not be overwhelmed? Do I rely on one social media outlet, or do I rely on a newspaper? What can I exactly do to not be overwhelmed?
It's a good question. I would repeat myself, and I would say maybe set specific timings during the day to get your news, as I mentioned before. But I would also say that maybe find out where you're getting, get proper sources of information, where are you getting your news source, right? I would not recommend that you get your news from social media, because it's supposed to be sensational news. They don't really care about, facts. I'm not saying that everything that you read on social media is not factual, but they're trying to hook you in, right? They're trying to get as many likes as possible. They want to evoke an emotion, an intense emotion in you, such as fear and anxiety. So I wouldn't recommend getting your news from social media. I would recommend that you get your news from an educational source. Maybe read an article. I would also recommend that you can stay informed, and it's very important to keep abreast with the world affairs, but I would also recommend that you counterbalance that, right? So when you're consuming distressing news, you're feeling it in your body. So maybe counterbalance that by helping your body process that stress, right? So maybe go outside, take a walk. We're blessed in Oman with sunshine, a lot of sunshine.
A lot of vitamin D.
Exactly. So vitamin D, when you get that, gives you a boost of serotonin. And serotonin is a chemical in your brain that regulates your mood. So that can elevate your mood as well.
The happy hormone.
Exactly. So that would be good. So, everything in moderation, I would say.
True. And that touches upon my next question, which was, if I feel anxious watching a certain news or a certain article, reading a certain article, what is the immediate action that I could take to lower my anxiousness or stress levels?
Okay.
And you touched upon that by saying maybe go outside or counter that feeling by doing something that makes you, feel happy. I just wanted to ask, when do I realize that I'm in need of help? When at what point do I say, okay, this is getting a little bit overboard and I feel like I need to seek help from a professional?
Yeah. First of all, I would like everyone to understand that feeling anxious is quite normal, right? I don't want people to think that if I feel anxious, then, I need to seek professional help. You're entitled to have anxiety. It is quite normal. But I would say that when would you need professional help is when you feel quite overwhelmed. So you feel that you're not able to switch off. You feel that anxiety is at the forefront of your everyday life, that anxiety is taking control of your life, that you're unable to take on responsibilities. You can't go on with your day. It is interfering with your daily life, and you're unable to cope. You're very stuck in your thoughts. You're not able to sleep. You feel the sense of helplessness and hopelessness, and you're unable to cope. You might also get maybe frequent panic attacks. So that's when I would say that maybe now it's the time that you seek professional help.
Very true. And actually you touched upon something very interesting. You said that when it interferes with your sleep, and we see that very prominently in the younger generation, Gen Z, where they'd be doom scrolling all night. And I feel like it's the teens that are getting the worst of this, because this is the generation where doom scrolling has been initiated. It started with Gen Z, right? So just as a final question, what's your advice for parents who are trying to control the consumption of news on their children?
Yeah. I would tell parents that, first of all, to ask their kids, what is it that they know about what's going on? Because it's important to assess what kind of information do they have. If they have the incorrect information, right, that would be a great opportunity for you as parents to rectify that, to give them the right information. I would also say limit how much you expose your kids to distressing images, right? I would also say that, give them appropriate age or age-appropriate information, right? Depending on their age, give them information that's appropriate for them to understand. But more than just words, right? You can give them the right information. You can say it in a age-appropriate manner. But I would say the most important thing is, how do you behave, right? Children can sense that. If you are quite anxious and your brain is constantly on that threat mode, and the threat mode is activated, then children can sense that, and they will model that as well.
They will feed off of that too.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So if you stay grounded and if you stay calm and you model that to your kids, then they would do the same thing.
So That was honestly enlightening, because I feel like there's a lot of parents that could be watching this or hearing this possibly, and I feel like they don't know how to take control of the situation. And honestly, this entire conversation has been very fascinating to learn more about like the things that are happening around the world right now and their effect on us, because as much as we don't see it, it's not an immediate threat, as you said, but it slowly chips down on our brain and puts us in huge distress. Is there anything else you want to add before wrapping up this interview?
I just want I want to normalize it. I want people to understand that, hey, you know, it's okay to feel anxious given the circumstances. There's a lot of uncertainty in this world right now, and instability, but it's okay, right? You are in control and of how you want to respond to what you see out there. I don't want people to feel that, okay, if I feel anxious, that there must be something wrong with me. You're entitled to feel anxious and to feel fear. We're entitled to have a range of emotions, right? There's no such thing as a bad or a good emotion.
True.
What we do in response to that emotion, that is what matters.
Right. So how we react to that is what matters the most.
Absolutely.
Well, this was an amazing conversation, Ms. Nutela. Thank you very much for joining us. And I feel like we've all learned something today about how the news and how consuming this news negatively can affect our mental health. We were joined with the senior licensed psychologist, Dr. Nutela Al-Kharousi from Al-Harab Medical Center, who, by the way, are celebrating their 25th anniversary. So that's amazing to hear. This is Oman FM 90.4. It's Ahmed Khalid Zuhaibi, and I'll see you guys next time.